Hi, I'm Christopher Walljasper in Chicago. It's Monday, October 20th. Today, Israel says the Gaza ceasefire is set to resume after airstrikes killed dozens. Thieves steal priceless jewels from the Louvre in Paris. A centrist wins the Bolivian election, ending decades of leftist rule. And Meta Research finds that on Instagram, teens who feel self-conscious about their bodies are seeing more, quote, eating disorder adjacent content. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. Israel says a ceasefire in Gaza has resumed after the most serious test yet of this month's truce. Israeli airstrikes killed 26 people following an attack that killed 2 Israeli soldiers. US President Donald Trump says the ceasefire is still in place and violations will be handled toughly but properly, though he's unsure if Hamas leadership was involved with the breaches.
It's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is.
Trump says he does not know whether the Israeli strikes were justified. Aid into Gaza is set to resume Monday after Israel had halted supplies, while disputes continue over the return of remaining hostage bodies. Mayan Lubell has the latest.
So we can see that the ceasefire is holding, but it is fragile, it is shaky, and that's even before we start to think about the next phases ahead, which are going to be much trickier. There's still a dispute between Israel and Hamas over the return of bodies of deceased hostages. Israel wants Hamas to speed up the process of locating and handing them over, while Hamas is saying that there are many technical difficulties it's facing in this regard. There are still very thorny issues ahead. You've seen Hamas deploy in the streets of Gaza in a show of strength. They're cracking down on other groups who have challenged them. That has made Israel increasingly nervous, obviously, and it raises a question of disarming Hamas, of demilitarizing Gaza, all these points which are part of Trump's plan for a lasting peace. It raises the question of who's going to govern Gaza. These are very big questions that both sides are going to have to work out, and a very, very difficult road lies ahead.
A brazen heist at the Louvre has shocked France. Thieves broke into the museum on Sunday morning by using a crane, smashing an upstairs window. American tourists Jim and Joan Carpenter were visiting when officials evacuated the museum.
We were just ready to go in to see the Mona Lisa when they swept us out of the gallery, swept us down the stairs by the Winged Victory. Then we were headed out the exit. We didn't realize the whole museum was being evacuated.
This is our last day of a long trip, and this is the most exciting part today.
Our reporter, Gabriel Stargarder, is in Paris.
So they targeted this very ornate hall in the Louvre, which houses essentially France's crown jewels, the crowns and necklaces and so forth of France's previous emperors and kings and queens. One piece, which local media have identified as the crown of the wife of Napoleon III, that piece fell out of loot as they were escaping from the scene, and that has been recovered. Apparently it's broken, local media have reported. So perhaps that might be able to give some hints or some clues on who may be behind this. But certainly French officials are very clear that this has been undertaken by professionals. This whole operation took 4 minutes. It was very clinical. They arrived at the spot. They knew where they were going. They set up a crane. They smashed the windows. 2 guys went out while 1 or 2 waited down below, and then they sped off on motorbikes. So these were not amateurs.
Gabriel says the robbery is likely to raise questions about security at the museum.
Earlier this year, officials at the Louvre had kind of sounded the alarm about what they said was a major lack of investment in the building and its installations, and that this was potentially threatening, the collection inside the Louvre, which is, one of the world's finest collections. This is not good for the government, given that this had already been quite publicly voiced as a major concern. The question for the French government is going to be how, at a time when they're under immense budget pressure, they're going to kind of spend the money that's needed to get the Louvre into the shape that is needed.
Colombia is out of control, and now they have the worst president they've ever had. He's a lunatic who's got a lot of problems, mental problems.
Donald Trump is accusing Colombia's president of being an illegal drug leader. He's threatening to up tariffs as well as cut off all payments to Bogota. It's an escalation in a feud stemming from the U.S. military's strikes on boats allegedly transporting drugs. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says U.S. forces attacked a boat associated with a Colombian rebel group. President Gustavo Petro says the boat belonged to a, quote, humble family, not a rebel organization. To Bolivia now, where a center-right senator has won the presidential election runoff. Rodrigo Paz Piera's win marks a shift to the right after 2 decades of dominance by the left in Bolivia. His party doesn't hold a majority, meaning he'll have to forge alliances in the coming weeks. Paz is promising to maintain social programs while promoting private growth. That's as Bolivia's economic crisis worsens. 2 Hong Kong airport security staff have been killed after a cargo plane from Dubai skidded off the runway on landing, colliding with their patrol vehicle and pushing them into the sea. The Boeing 747 also fell into the water and was partially submerged, but all 4 crew members escaped safely. It's the deadliest airport incident in Hong Kong in more than 25 years. Third quarter GDP numbers out of China show that growth has slowed to a 1-year low. That's after fragile domestic demand has left it heavily reliant on manufacturing production and exports. The Chinese economy's dependence on its exports as trade tensions with Washington remain high raise questions over whether Beijing is able to tackle the policy challenges. Even with these concerns, the GDP numbers matched the Q3 forecast, keeping China on track to expand by around 5% this year. Reuters has discovered Instagram is showing far more content described as eating disorder adjacent to teens who say the platform regularly makes them feel bad about their bodies. That's according to internal Meta research reviewed by Reuters. Meta's own advisors have urged the company to limit such content, but the document says Instagram's systems failed to detect nearly all of it. Technology reporter Jeff Horwitz is here and explains what eating disorder adjacent actually means.
Stuff that falls short of the standard, like, seriously, you should stop eating, like encouragement of eating disorder type content, but that would, let's say, emphasize skinny bodies, talk about restrictive diets. Basically, this is material that isn't banned on social media, but that you might think would be inappropriate to be showing a 13-year-old. The research that I got a hold of shows that the company asked well over 1,000 teenagers whether seeing content on Instagram regularly made them feel bad about their bodies. For the portion that did, and that was a little over 20%, they actually did a manual check of what content they were consuming. And what they found is that the eating disorder adjacent content, the body image content, that was running 3 times as high for the population that said that Instagram content made them feel bad about their bodies than it was for the people who said that it rarely, never, or only sometimes did.
Meta says the research doesn't prove causation.
It's possible that a teenager was searching over and over again for keywords that were bound to turn up nasty things. So, a lot of times you consume what you're served. Meta has also said that it has managed to reduce content of this sort by about 50% since the summer.
In a statement, Meta says the document reviewed by Reuters demonstrates Meta's commitment to understanding and improving its products. And for today's recommended read, how Madagascar's Gen Z are demanding a voice in shaping the country's future. An elite army colonel joined the protests earlier this month, forcing the president to flee the country. But the young people who made up the protest movement have mixed feelings about army rule and hope for systemic change. You can read the full article by following the link in the podcast description. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.